Every character has their own set of characteristics. Zaraki Kenpachi's personality makes it impossible for him to actively seek any benefits. Benefits? Is fighting not fun in itself? But with Zhao Shu's temperament, this is completely intolerable. Just fighting without gaining any benefits would be such a waste. Of course, an increase in realism might be considered a benefit, but who would be satisfied with just a little bit? So he started his own calculations. Zaraki Kenpachi may have a sense of direction impairment, but that doesn't mean Zhao Shu does too. With his template as Uchiha Madara, it would be easy for him to gather some information. Somewhere, there is a group of bandits. And then, the Kenpachi, who is quite normal, got lost here with his Hachimaru, and naturally a battle ensued. Of course, it's not that Zhao Shu is bored and wants to show off by killing ants, but these bandits may be thieves, but they can still be useful. Kozuki Hyori glanced at those bandits, who had a mix of fear and fascination in their eyes when it came to power. Power naturally attracts companions, as Saitama has, and Zaraki Kenpachi too. Uchiha Madara, Gilgamesh, they all have it. Although these bandits are weak, as an army, they still have some usefulness. As a survivor of the Kozuki clan, Kozuki Hyori has paid close attention to General Kurozumi Orochi and Kaido's information. Kurozumi Orochi has an army of 10,000 and even more troops. And these bandits number around 300, although their strength is still weak, they can still be considered as reinforcements. At least, it's better than me going alone to fight against the general and his 10,000 troops, right? Kozuki Hyori forced a bitter smile, but subconsciously glanced at Zaraki Kenpachi. Perhaps, it's the two of us. Although they haven't known each other for long, she can't help but feel that this man will help her. Even in the face of the legendary Four Emperors Kaido. No, he has already helped me. Kozuki Hyori thought to herself, having two true fighters who can kill Kaido, as well as the sleepy death god. That's already a great help for me. As a princess of the Kozuki clan, Kozuki Hyori couldn't deny that she had the desire to eliminate the general and restore the country. She couldn't even believe it herself. The power to defeat Kaido and the general is equivalent to helping her restore the country. And most importantly, unlike the ordinary samurai who want revenge for the Kozuki clan, Zaraki Kenpachi, despite his efforts, doesn't seek revenge at all. I guess he doesn't even know my identity, right? Kozuki Hyori's face turned slightly red. Those bandits are weak, but they can still play a certain role. If it doesn't work out, just treat them as cannon fodder, use them to buy time for me and Kenpachi to escape, Kozuki Hyori thought to herself. Of course, she wouldn't say this to Zaraki Kenpachi. The reason she gave was that these small fry could gather information and find the enemy. It wasn't a clever excuse, but as expected, Zaraki Kenpachi didn't care and just nodded. Great. Kozuki Hyori wanted to jump up in joy, clapping her hands in her heart. If we keep recruiting soldiers like this, maybe we can really fight. And Zhao Shu, the actor who played one of the 5 characters in the practice, was also happy in his heart. That's good, so next. In fact, the resistance against General Kurozumi Orochi in Wano country has never been completely wiped out. When Luffy and the others arrived here, they quickly gathered 4,000 soldiers. Although these 4,000 soldiers didn't arrive at the meeting point in time due to Kurozumi Orochi's methods. But it was enough to show the abundance of resistance forces in Wano country. You should know that the ruler of Wano country, General Kurozumi Orochi, only has 10,000 soldiers under his command. And this is Wano country several years later. In less than 10 years, there are even more resistance forces that have survived and not been eliminated by Kurozumi Orochi. Although Kozuki Hyori is a princess of the Kozuki family, she is still a child and doesn't know much about these resistance forces. So, she chose the simplest method, starting with the bandits. Just like the bandits who have been subdued now, bandits naturally have the characteristic of admiring the strong. Even though Wano country has a custom of admiring the strong, they are also accustomed to submitting to power. At the same time, they are accustomed to fighting and have a certain foundation. Although they are not as disciplined as regular soldiers, they are qualified as a ragtag group. Kozuki Hyori questioned the surrendered bandits, found the hideouts of other bandits, and then directly asked Kenpachi to go and kill them. Kenpachi didn't care as long as there was a fight, he was fine with anything. So in a short period of time, 2/3 of the bandits in Wano country were swept away by them, and the rest fled without a trace. But Kurozumi Orochi was completely unaware of this. Bandits are blind spots in the government's intelligence. It is difficult for the government to react to any changes they make. Also, because of constantly targeting thieves, Kozuki Hyori finally encountered a familiar former retainer of the Kozuki family, Are you Princess Kozuki Hyori? You've grown so big. Sakebiwamaru's eye sockets were filled with tears, his wide mouth grinned with genuine happiness. Ashura Dono, you even changed your name. Kozuki Hyori smiled bitterly, not knowing what to say. Ashura Dono, also known as Sakebiwamaru, was the leader of the Mount Atama bandits, and was once the most dangerous man in Kuri. He surrendered after losing to Kozuki Oden and pledged his loyalty. He was quite powerful and was praised by the Kozuki family as a one-man army. Later, he felt regretful that Wano country no longer had true samurai worth following, and had fallen to the point of plundering ordinary people, due to Kozuki Oden's death in the incident. Although the reason for his downfall was that he watched his comrades die one by one due to hunger and had to attack Kaido and the general. Seeing his comrades die one by one, he eventually became disheartened. But now, because it was still early, although there was a tendency to become disheartened, when he saw Kozuki Hyori, tears still welled up in his eyes. After the touching reunion of Lord and Retainer, Sakebiwamaru showed a serious expression. Lady Kozuki Hyori, I want to ask you something. He touched the scar on his waist and his eyes were filled with seriousness. What's the deal with that man named Zaraki Kenpachi? Yatsunemaru is the leader of the Tucson bandit group. Since they are a bandit group, it is only natural that they would be the target of Zaraki Kenpachi and Kozuki Hyori's cleanup. As a result, the two of them confronted Yatsunemaru without any hesitation. Kenpachi's attacks, which were fierce and relentless, startled Yatsunemaru. If it weren't for Kozuki Hyori recognizing Yatsunemaru later on, and Yatsunemaru being intelligent enough to gamble on Kenpachi's habits and take a few steps back without resisting, he might have been killed by Zaraki Kenpachi. It should be noted that Yatsunemaru is not weak in terms of strength. Even against Jack the Drought, who hasn't transformed with a devil fruit, he was able to hold his own for a while and even sent Jack's sword flying. However, despite this, Yatsunemaru touched the wound on his abdomen, his expression grave. When did such an existence appear in Wano country? Strong. Truly strong. Like a berserker, a samurai who pursues combat with the utmost purity, he is actually this strong. Yatsunemaru squinted his eyes, deeply moved by Kenpachi's dedication to battle. Kenpachi. He's probably not from Wano, Kozuki Hyori hesitated and said. Not from Wano. How is that possible? His name, habits, and attire are all very similar to ours. Yatsunemaru was taken aback, expressing his doubts. Zaraki Kenpachi's clothes are the captain's Hyori of the Gotei 13 in the Soul Society. His behavior also carries a hint of the Soul Society's aura. In the eyes of the people of Wano, it is impossible to tell that he is an outsider. And what about the Gotei 13? What's the situation with that? Yatsunemaru asked curiously. The Gotei 13 sounds like an organization from Wano. Isn't it the force left behind by Kozuki Oden, Kozuki Hyori's father? Although Yatsunemaru, who once followed Kozuki Oden, has never heard of this organization. It's probably not. Kozuki Hyori smiled bitterly. When the people from Kaido's pirate group heard about it, they seemed surprised too. It doesn't seem like a widely known organization from the outside world. It's not an organization from the outside, but Zaraki Kenpachi claims to be the captain of the 11th Division. The two exchanged a glance, a hint of confusion flashing through their eyes. But they didn't stay confused for long. Wano has been closed off for a long time, so it's possible that there are organizations from the outside that they don't know about. Yatsunemaru quickly gave up on these thoughts and said seriously, Princess, I want to confirm something. Does that swordsman know your identity? After pondering for a moment, Kozuki Hyori shook her head. He probably doesn't. She understood Yatsunemaru's meaning. He wanted to know if Zaraki Kenpachi was affiliated with some outside force, and if they could use that to overthrow General Kurozumi Orochi and gain some benefits for Wano. To be honest, they in Wano don't really care about these things. If people from other forces make sacrifices, they should naturally receive rewards. If they had the support of another force, their resistance would be much stronger. At present, they have gathered about 4,000 soldiers, most of whom are bandits, with Yatsunemaru's bandit group as the backbone. Although they have become a considerable force with the ability to fight, they are still much weaker compared to Kaido and General Kurozumi Orochi. If they had the help of another force, that would be great. Kozuki Hyori pondered for a moment and sighed. Uncle Shutenmaru, at the beginning, I pretended to have amnesia and followed him. But now, I think Kenpachi has probably already guessed my identity. No one is a fool, and Zaraki Kenpachi is no exception. At first, Kozuki Hyori's actions, such as guiding the way, could be attributed to the excuse of, although I have amnesia, I still have some vague impressions. But later actions were completely different. With Shutenmaru's appearance, it was already obvious that Kozuki Hyori herself went to stop Kenpachi from taking action. But Kenpachi never asked even a single question. Kozuki Hyori bit her lip, and a firm determination flashed in her beautiful eyes. I'm going to see him. I don't want to hide it from him anymore. Zaraki Kenpachi's location was easy to find. He was just quietly leaning against a corner of the house, yawning, half lying down, eyes closed, seemingly asleep. A gust of fragrant wind swept by, but his expression didn't change at all. He just calmly said, Hachimaru, what's up? Do you need something? Kozuki Hyori's footsteps paused, and she suddenly hesitated. How should she explain the fact that she lied to him? Deceiving people was not a big problem for her. Even if she openly admitted to deceiving someone, she had the ability to manipulate men in the palm of her hand. But when it came to making excuses, it wasn't so easy for her. There were too many reasons, such as not knowing each other at first, being a princess of the Kozuki clan and needing to hide her identity, and so on. Faced with such a face, she couldn't bring herself to come up with excuses. After hesitating for a long time, she could only speak in a low voice, "Do you know who I am?" Her words were filled with hesitation, worry, unease. But Zaraki Kenpachi didn't even bother to get up, his eyelids didn't even twitch. In his calm and hoarse voice, he simply answered, "Aren't you Hachimaru?" Kozuki Hyori was stunned, dumbfounded. After a long time, she suddenly revealed a sweet smile. "Yeah, I am Hachimaru. That's enough." On the third day, Zaraki Kenpachi, with a crazy smile on his face, led a large group of soldiers behind him and headed straight for the capital of Wano country, Flower Capital. They couldn't hide for too long. They were running out of food. Although they could survive for a while with the food they had looted from some farms before, there were too many people and it wasn't enough to eat. Perhaps if they slowly gathered the former members of the Kozuki clan, they could find quite a few skilled fighters. But there was no time, and if they made too many moves, the general would notice. So, why not just go straight up and launch a surprise attack on the Flower Capital? Zaraki Kenpachi grinned, revealing a joyful and crazy expression. Finally, I can have a good fight. To be honest, this is completely a gamble. The success rate is very low. But to be honest, whether it's Jushin Pill or Kozuki Hyori, they can't think of a better solution. The gathered soldiers need food, and although they can break into the farms are not granaries, and there isn't enough food for everyone to eat. Instead of waiting for the enemy to gather all their forces to surround them, it's better to make a desperate move now. Of course, this desperate assault is not completely unplanned. Unfortunately, when Jushin Pill asked Zaraki Kenpachi, "Do you have a good plan?" Zaraki Kenpachi directly replied, "Yes." "What plan?" "Find the enemy and kill them, isn't that good enough?" Jushin Pill. "But in reality, there is no better way. They don't have much time to plan, and they don't have time to obtain the blueprints of the city. So, let's go." "Who are you?" The sudden attack of a large group of soldiers directly alarmed the soldiers guarding the capital. "Halt! Halt!" The soldiers held their swords and gathered at the gate, their faces grim. "Do you not value your lives? Is this a rebellion?" However, the response they received was Zaraki Kenpachi's laughter. Swish! 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 Sword lights flickered, and hundreds of soldiers couldn't even stop him for 3 seconds before being knocked away. "Where are the enemy's experts?" Zaraki Kenpachi laughed. "I don't want to deal with small fry right now." "They are in the Heavenly Tower." Kozuki Hyori emerged from behind Zaraki Kenpachi and said, "The general should be there on normal days." "The Heavenly Tower? The tallest building. Over there? Let's go." Zaraki Kenpachi laughed and didn't care about the soldiers behind him as he charged towards the Heavenly Tower. Behind them, Jushin Pill lay on the back of a cow, watching their figures, his mouth twitching. After all, they were rebels. Although they rose up in haste and lacked strength, they could at least find a horse. Why did the princess insist on hanging on that man's back? Where is the dignity of the Kozuki clan? But now he couldn't care about such trivial matters. He could only shout at the top of his lungs, "Quick! Take the swords from the soldiers' hands. These will be our weapons from now on." Because the uprising was too hasty, the soldiers' swords were not fully prepared. Fortunately, most of the soldiers were bandits and already had some weapons in their hands. Otherwise, they would really have to resort to using makeshift weapons. But fortunately, we are launching a surprise attack. The enemy may not be able to gather many forces. If we rely on the suddenness and defeat the general quickly, Maybe we can win. Jushin Pill took a deep breath and said, charge. Target. Heavenly Tower. Oh. Meanwhile, at the Heavenly Tower. General. General. Something bad happened. The soldier rushed in, his face filled with fear. Somebody is attacking the flower capital. What? Everyone was shocked and angry at the news. The flower capital was the capital of Wano country. Someone actually wanted to besiege this place? What a joke. Who? Who dares to offend my flower capital? General Kurozumi Orochi's face twisted in anger, and several snakeheads emerged behind him. The huge snakehead approached the soldier who delivered the news, and its chilling aura made his scalp tingle. It's a swordsman. The soldier trembled as he spoke. Oh, right. I heard from the people ahead that the leader of this attack seems to be Kozuki Hyori. What? Swish. The huge snakehead directly bit the soldier, bringing him in front of Kurozumi Orochi. Kurozumi Orochi's anger intensified, his teeth clenched, and his eyes filled with ferocity. Say it again, who was the enemy? Kozuki Hyori. Haha. The enormous snake head directly swallowed the soldier halfway, splattering blood. Kozuki. His voice was extremely cold, filled with a hint of killing intent. The Kozuki clan has always been his greatest taboo. For this reason, he has directly executed anyone who is connected to the Kozuki clan. Even if it was just an involuntary shout, it would be a heinous crime deserving of death. Now, there are still people from the Kozuki clan alive? Kurozumi Orochi's eyes swept across the room with a cold gaze, then suddenly stood up. Then let her die today, although the prophecy said that there were still several years until now. But since they launched their attack today, let them die today. Fortunately, we still have. Suddenly, before Kurozumi Orochi could say anything, a flash of swordlight came straight towards him. The dazzling white swordlight descended from above, cutting the entire castle tower in half. The building split apart, and countless officials inside the castle tower fell out, exclaiming in shock. And in front of the castle tower, a tall man and a petite girl were there, laughing and talking. You see, I told you that with just one slash, they would all come out, and most likely, they would be strong. Zaraki Kenpachi laughed. Yes. Kenpachi, you're really smart. Kozuki Hyori smiled sweetly. Behind them, Sakazuki finally caught up, panting heavily, looking at Zaraki Kenpachi as if he were crazy. He had only arranged the distribution of manpower, but he almost couldn't catch up to this man who was charging ahead. Just how good is he at killing? He killed the most people, faced the most enemies, and broke through the most defenses. Even the soldiers in the back couldn't catch up. It's fortunate that such a fierce man led the way, boosting the morale of everyone. Otherwise, the soldiers without weapons might not have been able to reach the core of the flower capital so quickly. However, we've already reached the castle tower. All we have to do now is deal with Kurozumi Orochi and his officials, and it will be victory. Sakazuki's eyes flashed with excitement. But the next second, his expression froze. Boom. A loud noise. One by one, large snakeheads rose from the ruins of the castle tower. Kurozumi Orochi. Zone Devil Fruit. Snake Fruit, Mythical Beast Model, Yamada no Orochi form. This wasn't the key point. Since he had come here, he was prepared to deal with Kurozumi Orochi. Roar. A gigantic dinosaur shook off the rocks from the ruins, its eyes filled with ferocity. Ancient Zone Devil Fruit. Pteranodon form, Plague Queen. The two giant beasts emerged from the ruins, then returned to their human forms, revealing familiar faces to everyone. People from the Kaido Pirates. Why are they here? Sakazuki's face changed. How could he have investigated the movements of the Kaido pirates in such a short time? But this was troublesome. The rebel soldiers behind him also showed panic. The Kaido pirates, Kurozumi Orochi, and the strong individuals gradually standing up from the ruins. Page 1. Ancient Zone Devil Fruit, Spinosaurus form. Fukurouju, the captain of the Orochi Oniwabanshu. How can we win this? Suddenly, some soldiers showed a look of despair. Don't panic. Sakazuki suppressed the panic and encouraged them. In terms of numbers, we have the advantage. Indeed, their soldiers had already swarmed in, while Kurozumi Orochi's soldiers had not yet reacted due to the surprise attack. In terms of numbers, they were at least twice as many as the enemy. But is this just a matter of numbers? The opponents are all powerful enough to take on 1,000. Don't make a fuss. Suddenly, a calm and slightly hoarse voice sounded. Who said you could go and fight them? Zaraki Kenpachi grinned, excitement flashing in his eyes. Looking at the 4 people standing up from the ruins, he gripped his sword. 4 against 1, if you want to be my enemy, you're still not enough to look at. 4 against 1, huh? If you want to be my enemy, you're not even worth considering. Zaraki Kenpachi revealed a crazy smile, his eyes filled with excitement. No matter who it was, anyone could see from his expression that he was happy and joyful, without a hint of frustration or despair. He really thought like this. You said 4 against 1? Peckham's, one of the 6 members of the Flying Six of the Beast's pirates, flashed a hint of anger in his eyes. Are you saying that one person can take on the 4 of us? Truly arrogant. The Flying Six is a group of assassins controlled by one of the 3 calamities, the Plague Calamity Queen. It is composed of the 6 strongest headliners in the pirate crew. In terms of strength, they can be considered top-tier opponents. You're just blabbering, so annoying, Zaraki Kenpachi said with a smile, pointing his special sword at them. Hurry up and come at me. It would be best if all 4 of you attack together. If all 4 sides attack at the same time, maybe one of them will have a chance to cut me, he said. 4 against, and they might have a chance to cut him? In an instant, the expressions of the 4 individuals changed. Then, Mr. Kenpachi, what about us? Zabai Maru couldn't help but ask, his mouth twitching. Zaraki Kenpachi swung his long sword. You'll just get in the way, so get lost. Everyone. But Kozuki Hyori looked at Kenpachi, a faint glimmer in her eyes. This man looks so happy. After a moment of silence, Kozuki Hyori suddenly showed a sweet smile. Then let's go do something else. Yeah, I'll take care of them and join you right away, Zaraki Kenpachi said calmly, not even looking at them. Alright, let's go, Kozuki Hyori said to Zabai Maru. We still need to support other areas and suppress the remaining enemies in the granaries. In fact, they had a lot of work to do. Kurozumi Orochi had 10,000 soldiers in the capital, and there were still some soldiers from Kaido's pirate crew here. The total number of soldiers was much larger than the army they brought. The granaries were also of utmost importance. Wano country had very little food, and if something went wrong, the entire country could collapse. Zabai Maru's mouth twitched, and in the end, he shook his head. Never mind, let's go. In his eyes, Zaraki Kenpachi was buying time for their retreat. It was inevitable that he would develop a slight fondness for Zaraki Kenpachi. Actually, it was rare for a warrior to have any negative opinions about such a pure man. Even if this pure man's actions sometimes disregarded the overall situation. Kozuki's people, none of you can escape. Kurozumi Orochi's eyes flickered, and the next second, Fukurouju slightly lowered his head and rushed forward. He was the captain of the Oniwabanshu, and although his strength was not as great as Sleepy Ashigara, it was definitely not weak. However, did you all take my words as a joke? The next second, a flash of sword light instantly engulfed his entire body. Zaraki Kenpachi's sword was covered in blood, his eyes flickering with madness. Fool. Zaraki Kenpachi grinned with a crazy smile. I told you to come at me all together. Coming one by one will get you killed, you know. However, the corpse on the ground made it impossible to ignore his words. Kurozumi Orochi and the Plague Calamity Queen exchanged a glance, then without hesitation, they charged forward. One was a general who wanted to overthrow the rule of the Kozuki clan, and the other was a pirate. Naturally, they wouldn't bother with reasoning. Peggy, one of the 6 Linkong disciples, didn't hesitate at all. With a loud roar, she activated her dragon fruit ability and transformed into a half-dragon, charging straight towards Kenpachi. Kenpachi Zaraki grinned, his eyes filled with madness. That's more like it. Although I just killed 10 of them earlier, I guess I can consider it a warm-up after waking up. The 3 of them had cold expressions and attacked together. Yizai Kuin's obese body twisted, throwing a punch that created a series of hurricanes. Kurozumi Orochi drew his twin swords from his waist, his ugly face muscles twitching as he unleashed a long and narrow sword aura. Peggy, the Linkong disciple, charged quickly. While charging, she opened her mouth wide, revealing sharp teeth. Boom. Yizai Kuin's fist wind arrived first, scattering dust and smoke. The next second, the sword light arrived. Starting from Kurozumi Orochi, a long sword mark extended, even cutting through the thick smoke. Before the dust and smoke completely dissipated, Peggy used her ferocious jaws to bite down. The biting force of a dinosaur is the strongest among all animals. Splurt. The dust and smoke hadn't cleared, but Kurozumi Orochi and Yizai Kuin outside had already heard the sound of dinosaur teeth sinking into flesh. It's over. Kurozumi Orochi sneered, Zaraki Kenpachi. This man is just too foolish. Yuzai Kuin also disdainfully said, even if he killed a few of us, so what? Now he's facing us. Kurozumi Orochi was definitely not weak. Dragons don't coexist with snakes. How could a weakling possibly form an alliance with Kaido? But in terms of strength, he even slightly suppressed Yuzai Kuin. Yuzai Kuin, with a bounty of 1.32 billion berries, was known as the Master of Disaster. Even among the Linkong disciples, who were slightly weaker, Peggy was the strongest under the three calamities. Facing their combined attack, this man called Zaraki Kenpachi was already enough to be proud of. However, in the next second, ha 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 ha. Crazy laughter echoed in the dust and smoke. Kurozumi Orochi and Yuzai Kuin's pupils simultaneously contracted. They looked at the dissipating dust and saw the man still standing there proudly. He was being bitten by Peggy's transformed dinosaur teeth, the teeth piercing his skin and drawing blood. However, this difficult person revealed a crazed expression of joy. What's this? Is this all? How could this be possible? Being bitten by someone who possessed the dinosaur fruit ability, and then being attacked by two individuals with strengths exceeding 1 billion. How could he still be alive? Oh my. Zaraki Kenpachi sighed, then forcefully grabbed the bloodied mouth of the dinosaur formed by Peggy. And then, he tore it apart. Crack! That huge dinosaur was torn into 2 pieces by him, starting from its mouth. The dinosaur on the ground turned into a corpse. But the man, covered in blood, looked at the 2 people in front of him with a crazy and disdainful gaze. I take back what I said. This level of strength can't even dispel my sleepiness. Clang! The fists of the plague disaster, Kuin, and the sword of Kurozumi Orochi simultaneously struck Zaraki Kenpachi's sword. Their faces showed fear and astonishment. Although Ling Kongliutsi was a true strong fighter, he was still inferior to these experts. It shouldn't be this easy to be torn apart so casually. What's wrong? Don't be scared by such a small matter. Zaraki Kenpachi laughed heartily and kicked out. Bang! Kurozumi Orochi was sent flying by the force of the kick. Kuin was taken aback and turned his head. Don't look around like an idiot. Zaraki Kenpachi's mad voice resounded as he grabbed Kuin's wrist and threw him. Bang! The obese body caused the ground around the Tenchukaku to tremble. What kind of talk is that? Zaraki Kenpachi carried his sword and his eyes showed a hint of madness. With this level of strength, what makes you think you can be the boss? You're not dead yet, so get up. Before you die, give it your all and fight back. He fearlessly carried his Zanpakuta and, although his tall stature was not as high as Kuin's, he emitted an indescribable sense of pressure. Squeezing their bodies, oppressing their souls. Who? Kurozumi Orochi gasped for breath, raised his head, and a flash of fierceness appeared in his eyes. Truly audacious, daring to offend the general, you deserve 1,000 deaths. Enough with the nonsense. Zaraki Kenpachi sneered disdainfully. If you don't like me, then come at me and attack. I don't need you to tell me, I will kill you, Kurozumi Orochi roared in anger. In the next second, a huge 8-headed serpent appeared out of thin air. A wordless sense of fear suddenly emerged. Zoana snake fruit, a mythical beast type, a Yamada no Orochi form. Yamada no Orochi is a monster from Wano country's mythology, with 8 heads and eyes resembling red lantern fruits. Its body is covered in moss, cypress, and cedar. The snake heads resemble dragons, with double horns at the back and purple-red scales. The crown that was originally worn on Orochi's head also appeared on one of the snakeheads. Kurozumi Orochi became an ally of Kaido not by betraying Wano country's interests, but by his strength. This mythical creature naturally exudes an aura of fear, enough to erode the fighting spirit of any existence. However, the man in front of it showed a smile. Hee, this is getting interesting. Fear is something that doesn't exist in Zaraki Kenpachi's heart. HMPH. Kurozumi Orochi snorted coldly as the huge snakehead came rushing towards him. Then I'll join in too. Kuin squinted his eyes. Being mocked like this, it's my first time. In the next second. Roar. Dragon fruit, ancient type wrist dragon form. He is one of the 3 disasters. With immense strength, he even dared to attack Charlotte Linlin of the 4 emperors. Roar. The monsters roared, howled, and attacked wildly. Seeing this, Zaraki Kenpachi also laughed heartily. Now this is interesting. Then, he charged forward, laughing maniacally. With the strength of the wrist dragon's teeth, he struck. Facing the head of the Yamada no Orochi, strike. Facing the countless tails that cannot be distinguished, strike. The three of them fought fiercely, every strike drawing blood, with brute force and unstoppable momentum, causing the mountains to shake and the earth to tremble. Soon, both Kaido and Kurozumi Orochi realized the difficulty of dealing with this man. His attacks were unprecedentedly ferocious. Being slashed, bitten, and rammed into, nothing could stop his assault. No matter how strong the attack, he would only counter with even greater force. A formidable enemy. In an instant, the words, formidable enemy, appeared in the minds of Kaido and Kurozumi Orochi. This kind of strength was not just physical, but also mental. Unless they completely annihilated this man, he would never fall and would always be filled with fighting spirit. However, we can win. Kaido and Kurozumi Orochi exchanged a glance and immediately launched stronger and faster attacks. Kurozumi Orochi transformed into the Yamada no Orochi, with 8 snake heads and 8 snake tails that could attack at an incredibly fast frequency. Kaido transformed into a dinosaur, and in terms of attack power alone, he was even stronger than Kurozumi Orochi. Moreover, both of them had extremely powerful recovery abilities. After being attacked by Charlotte Linlin, Kaido could stand up again and continue to attack in no time. And the Yamada no Orochi in mythology was known for its extremely rapid recovery ability. Strong in power, quick in recovery, and fierce in speed. Zaraki Kenpachi was just one person, even though the sword in his hand swung with increasing force and speed. But in the end, he gradually fell behind. What a pity. If you were only facing one of us, perhaps you would have won. If Lord Kaido saw you, he might be delighted. Kurozumi Orochi and Kaido's thoughts were constantly running. But they only had one thought: kill him. Swish. The heads of the Yamada no Orochi suddenly reached out, and 2 sharp horns swept past Zaraki Kenpachi. This blow sent Zaraki Kenpachi flying far away, leaving 2 bloodstains behind. A good opportunity. Kaido's eyes lit up, and he leapt up suddenly. He jumped dozens of meters high, with the dragon's head facing downwards, fiercely ramming towards Zaraki Kenpachi. Wrist Dragon Bomb. He had used this move to attack Charlotte Linlin before. It was a powerful attack that dared to attack the 4 emperors, possessing immense strength. What's that? Kaido was stunned, as he seemed to see something falling from Zaraki Kenpachi's body. An eye patch? In the next second, he was completely stunned. Buzz. 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 An unprecedentedly fierce and violent aura suddenly surged from Zaraki Kenpachi. An invisible force enveloped the area for thousands of miles, binding everyone and making their movements extremely difficult, as if they were insects trapped in oil droplets. The air became abnormally viscous, dense, and ferocious. Suddenly, a sword light flickered in the flower capital. A sword light flickered in the flower capital. Crack. The ground in the flower capital actually split in half. The soldiers from both sides who were engaged in battle instinctively stopped their attacks and turned their heads towards the source of the sword mark. Meanwhile, Kozuki Hyori looked at the erupting sword light with a hint of joy in her eyes. He won. Indeed, Zaraki Kenpachi won. The body of the severed armored dragon lay there, and after a while, it transformed back into the appearance of the plague Kuan. His face was filled with fear, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. TCH. Zaraki Kenpachi calmly wiped his eyes. The eye patch that should have been there was now gone. It's all because you knocked off my eye patch, causing me to lose control of my strength technique, Rokuja Yan, and accidentally kill him. Kurozumi Orochi's body trembled, and even the huge monster hesitated to attack. One sword. Just one sword. It directly killed the plague Kuan, who had a similar level of strength. He couldn't help but ask, "What is this eye patch of yours?" "It's a seal," Zaraki Kenpachi calmly replied. "A seal? This eye patch was made by the Technological Development Bureau. It's a monster that can endlessly devour spiritual power." Zaraki Kenpachi calmly picked up the eye patch on the ground and turned it over. Sure enough, it revealed teeth and eyes that resembled a monster inside. "With this thing, I seal my Ryotsu and enjoy the battle slowly." The previous Zaraki Kenpachi only fought with shackles on his feet against his enemies. Now, he is truly unleashing his full power. The attack just now was his normal strike. The terrifying pressure now is his normal Ryotsu. Kurozumi Orochi widened his eyes and felt a tremor in his heart. The weakened version of him was already enough to fight against the 2 of them. And now, let's just kill one person. After all, I still have you to accompany me in a fight. Kurozumi Orochi looked at the man in front of him and turned his head, revealing a smile of genuine happiness from the bottom of his heart. But behind this man, an invisible aura gathered, forming the appearance of a demon. The suppression in the flower capital was completely quelled after one day. The street battles between the two armies were actually resolved quickly. Although the number of people on Kinemon's side was small, by directly charging towards the heavenly castle at the beginning, Zaraki Kenpachi almost single-handedly took out all the executives except for Kurozumi Orochi and his 3 subordinates. This advantage of the enemy being without a leader gradually tilted the scales in their favor. Kurozumi Orochi was not a respected leader. Even her samurai and officials under her did not truly respect her. In a short period of time, it was fine, but without a strong presence for a long time, their formation became chaotic, and some even rebelled. Especially the sounds and vibrations coming from the heavenly castle made people suspicious. Coupled with the people's admiration for the Kozuki family, the alliance between Kinemon and the Minks ultimately succeeded in suppressing the flower capital. The capital of Wano-kuni has changed hands. After completing the mission, Kozuki Hyori did not pay attention to the hastily changing city, but instead went straight to the center of the castle in the Tenshukaku. Shutenmaru saw this but didn't say anything. There hasn't been any sound coming from over there for a long time. Especially since Kurozumi Orochi and Kaido's men have not appeared, it has already foretold something. Sure enough. After arranging everything and walking to the Tenshukaku, Shutenmaru saw Kozuki Hyori pouting while bandaging Zaraki Kenpachi. Next to them were the lifeless bodies of Kurozumi Orochi and the scabbards. And that man still had the same calm expression, even though he was in the center of the battlefield, even though he had defeated the strongest enemy, even though he should have been the most worthy of praise. But he still yawned, seemingly not caring and wanting to lie down for a nap, then was pushed up by Kozuki Hyori, who was dissatisfied. There's still a wound that hasn't been treated. Shutenmaru shook his head helplessly, turned his head and glanced at the lifeless head of Kurozumi Orochi. The owner of this head was once the general of Wano-kuni, the enemy of the Kuri village, and the mortal enemy of the Kozuki clan. He was the one the people of Wano-kuni most wanted to kill. But now, he was lying here quietly like an ordinary corpse. Becoming part of the background. After a moment of silence, waiting for Kozuki Hyori to finish changing the bandages, Shutenmaru walked over. Princess, we still need you for the next steps. Oh. Kozuki Hyori hesitated for a moment, turned her head and said, Kenpachi, I have to go busy. Go ahead. Zaraki Kenpachi waved his hand indifferently. Don't disturb me while I'm sleeping. HMPH. Kozuki Hyori snorted lightly, but she gently tied the final knot on the bandage before getting up and following Shutenmaru to leave. They had a lot of work to do, such as first establishing Kozuki Hyori's identity and gaining the support of the people in the capital by leveraging the Kozuki clan's bloodline. At the same time, they needed to clean up the remnants of General Kurozumi Orochi and Kaido's subordinates, gradually bringing the entire Wano-kuni under their rule. There were also rewards for their soldiers and commendations for the samurai, selecting those who had committed fewer crimes from the prisoners. There were still many troublesome matters. Zaraki Kenpachi lay quietly on the ground, his eyes slightly closed, but his mind was filled with thoughts. Like this. Then I can. Shutenmaru, who had once assisted Kozuki Oden in governing Kuri, was quite familiar with some matters. He quickly helped Kozuki Hyori establish a basic political framework and maintained basic public order. The Battle of Flower Capital had come to an end, and the subsequent arrangements were gradually beginning. Although they had not completely established control over the entire Wano-kuni, the plan was already in motion and ready to be implemented gradually. And at this moment, Princess, the most important matter for our country is next, Shutenmaru said solemnly to Kozuki Hyori. The most important matter? Kozuki Hyori was taken aback. Is it the opening of the country? Opening the country was her father's wish and the desire of the older generation like Shutenmaru. It had even become the belief of everyone after overthrowing Kurozumi Orochi. However, Shutenmaru shook his head gravely. No, it's not the opening of the country. Although the opening of the country is important, there is something even more crucial. Something else. Kozuki Hyori was puzzled. Yes, Shutenmaru said seriously, what we need to do most is to keep Zaraki Kenpachi, this man. Keep this man here. This is what Judianmaru has been thinking about, the thing they should do the most. He's strong, really strong. Although I don't know how he compares to Kaido, he is definitely a major trump card for our side. Now that one of the 3 calamities, the Plague Calamity, Queen, has been killed, the next one to come is Doro. Although Kaido is currently out and his whereabouts are unknown, Wano country is very closed off, making it difficult for information to spread. But sooner or later, Kaido will realize the problem and come back to kill. He is very self-aware. Relying solely on Wano country, it is absolutely impossible to stop the man known as the strongest creature on land, sea, and air. We need Kenpachi. Juteonmaru's mind is determined. They absolutely cannot afford to be without such an ally right now. For this, even if it means paying any price, it is negotiable. Juteonmaru subconsciously glanced at Kozuki Hyori. Although she is only 13 or 14 years old, as the daughter of his lord, Kozuki Hyori has a beautiful face and a graceful figure. Even though she may appear a bit immature, she has a remarkable charm. In fact, it is evident that Juteonmaru's taste is quite good. Kozuki Hyori is known as the #1 beauty in Wano country and is officially recognized as one of the top 3 beauties in the pirate world, alongside Hancock and Shirahoshi. If it's Princess Sama, maybe she can tie down Zaraki Kenpachi, Juteonmaru thought to himself. Although it may be a bit embarrassing for his lord to offer herself to someone, Juteonmaru doesn't mind. Women, sooner or later, will get married and have children. It's normal for his lord to be with Zaraki Kenpachi. That kind of extraordinary warrior can definitely give birth to exceptionally talented offspring, which would be Wano country's fortune. As for the issue of Kozuki Hyori's young age, hey, is that even a problem? Juteonmaru's lord, Kozuki Oden, was only 15 when he threatened the temple's abbot, abducted women every night to serve as his harem, used his charm to conquer them, and then caused public dissatisfaction, leading to the harem rebellion. Age is just a trivial matter. Kozuki Hyori is very mature for her age, so she naturally understands the implications behind Juteonmaru's words. Including the meaning behind Juteonmaru looking at her later, she is well aware of it. Kozuki Hyori smiled bitterly and said, "Uncle Juteonmaru, can you imagine a man like Zaraki Kenpachi being tied down by a woman?" I can't imagine such a scene at all. Putting aside the issue of emotions, she can't even imagine that scene. Zaraki Kenpachi being tied down by a woman. How is that possible? Juteonmaru was stunned by her words, then smiled bitterly. Yes, such a scene is truly unimaginable. He can imagine Zaraki Kenpachi laughing maniacally while killing a woman, but he can't imagine that man gently embracing a woman. This art style is completely off. Speaking of that battle maniac, is he really interested in women? He seems more interested in killing women. The two locked eyes and chuckled. After a moment of silence, Kozuki Hyori spoke up. Actually, it might not be impossible to keep Kenpachi. Zaraki Kenpachi was taken aback. Zaraki Kenpachi is always easy to find, especially when there are no strong enemies around. He just casually lies around in the dormitory, or as he calls it, the team dormitory. Zaraki Kenpachi looked up. What's up, Hachimaru? Oh, nothing. Kozuki Hyori smiled slightly and sat down next to him. I suddenly became curious about the Gote 13. Can you tell me about it? Oh? Zaraki Kenpachi tilted his head, but still said, the Gote 13 is one of the most important parts of Soul Society. Its goal is to protect the safety of Seireiti, so it's called the Gote 13 Feet. The original Gote 13 was a group of assassins founded by an old man. Later, they took over from the Zero Division and began guarding the safety of Seireiti and maintaining the order between Soul Society and the living world. He didn't care much and casually mentioned some information about the Gote 13. Occasionally, he would mix in some lines like, the captain of the 5th Division is strong, I want to fight him again, or, Byakuya always acts like a noble, I want to find a chance to fight him, or, Tusen's Zanpakuta ability is troublesome, it seals the sense of hearing, which is really annoying to fight against. These were typical Kenpachi style lines. In reality, with those strange lines mixed in, it would be quite troublesome for outsiders to listen to, as he would jump from one topic to another. However, Kozuki Hyori didn't mind. She just sat there with a smile, quietly listening to Kenpachi's words. After a while, Kozuki Hyori said, Kenpachi, does your Gote 13 mind taking on commissions from others? Commissions? Zaraki Kenpachi was puzzled and asked. Yeah. Kozuki Hyori nodded heavily. Wano country wants to hire the 11th Division to protect its territory from invasion. Hire us. Zaraki Kenpachi was surprised. What about your samurai? Those samurai have long ceased to be what they used to be after years of oppression, Kozuki Hyori smiled. I think the 430th country and Wano country would agree to let you recruit people in Wano country and join the 11th Division. Every time she spoke, she emphasized Wano country. It sounded as if Wano country was a person, and she was negotiating with Zaraki Kenpachi on behalf of Wano country. That's what I want. Zhao Shu squinted his eyes. Just killing enemies. That's what Zaraki Kenpachi wants, not what Zhao Shu wants. Wano country has a superior geographical environment and abundant resources, and it is also the only place where seastone is produced. By taking on the role of the protector of Wano country, Zaraki Kenpachi can gain certain rights. That is his goal. Just fighting? Why not just kill Kurozumi Orochi and the others directly? He had to go to the side of the thieves and follow Kozuki Hyori's instructions to gather the thieves, just to let Kozuki Hyori take control of Wano country's power, while he could subtly control Wano country. That's what Zhao Shu wants to gain from all this. So, it seems that the captain has the right to choose his team members, so expanding the 11th division seems reasonable, right? Zaraki Kenpachi rubbed his chin and said. Then let's do it. Yeah. Kozuki Hyori nodded happily. Next, it's time to slowly rule over the entire Wano country. In reality, Zaraki Kenpachi and the others only relied on a surprise attack to kill the leaders Kurozumi Orochi and the Plague Disaster Queen, and took control of the capital of Wano country, Flower Capital. But the general's rule is not limited to just the Flower Capital. There are also several other prosperous towns with soldiers deployed in various locations. Kaido also has factories in various places, and likewise, many crew members. At the same time, it should be noted that the general has been ruling over Wano country for over a decade. In these 10+ years, he has already gathered a group of samurais who have gained wealth and power through him, forming his foundation. However, it is obvious that Kozuki Hyori cannot gain the recognition of these people. But at least these people are often the minority. The legacy left by the Kozuki clan has not completely faded, and there are even some places where the old retainers of the Kozuki still live. These people, along with the general's oppressed commoners, form the foundation for Kozuki Hyori. That's right. Kozuki Hyori has now declared herself as the general of Wano country, becoming one of the few female generals in Wano country. In reality, there is no other choice. The support of the Sakebi Maru is for the Kozuki, and the Kozuki now only has this bloodline. Although Momonosuke is a male, he was sent 20 years into the future by his mother, so it will be several more years until Momonosuke and the others from the Kozuki family appear. Moreover, Sakebi Maru doesn't even know if their time travel was successful or not. Making Kozuki Hyori the general is also his wish. Of course, there will definitely be some people who oppose Kozuki Hyori's female identity, but at the moment, there is no need to worry about them. Because, when the samurais patrolling the Flower Capital passed by the ruins of the castle tower, admiration flashed in their eyes. They instinctively paused, slightly bowed their heads, and then continued on. Similar situations are happening not just here. Around Kenpachi's barracks, the legendary forest where Zaraki Kenpachi and Kozuki Hyori met. A mountain seat that directly impacts the front of the farm. Kenpachi Dono is really strong. Yes, look at the ground, such large cracks, I wonder how he made them. He truly lives up to his title as the demonic Kenpachi. The warriors sighed, their eyes filled with excitement. This unbelievably powerful existence is the object of their utmost admiration. I heard that Kenpachi Dono is going to form the 11th division and become its captain. Why the 11th division? What about the previous divisions? Don't worry about those small details, I've already decided to sign up for the assessment. What about you guys? Me? Of course, I'm going too. Wano-kuni worships power, worships the strong. Kurozumi Orochi has been able to reign over Wano-kuni for such a long time, it can also be said that his power has subdued the people. Otherwise, if all the people rebelled, he wouldn't be able to maintain his rule. However, Sakagamaru occasionally hears the words of those warriors and can't help but sigh inwardly. Kenpachi's prestige seems to be a bit too great. On the day he led the team, the figure of this man was imprinted on almost every soldier who charged in. Now, those soldiers have become his loyal supporters. Sakagamaru even suspects that if Zaraki Kenpachi wanted to rebel, there would immediately be a large number of warriors following him. There's no way around it, Wanakuna's obsession with the strong is too severe. As long as you're strong enough, you can attract enough support. Moreover, Zaraki Kenpachi indeed has a unique charm. Of course, in addition to the rumors about Zaraki Kenpachi's strength, there are also some romantic rumors. I heard that our new general has fallen in love at first sight with the demon god Kenpachi? No, I heard that Kenpachi was captivated by the general, so he drew his sword to protect the general and slayed the giant snake. I heard that after the battle between Kenpachi and Kurozumi Orochi, Kenpachi fell into a coma for 3 days and 3 nights, and the general took care of him without even taking off her clothes. Idiot. It was clearly the demon god Kenpachi who easily killed Kurozumi Orochi with one sword, and he got the girl. Although most of these are made up, these things spread the fastest. Of course, whether there are any secret methods among the Kozuki retainers, no one knows. There are still Kaido's crew members and the general's forces in various parts of Wano country, and the new general needs to eliminate them little by little. Fortunately, Wano country's naturally harsh environment and its geographical feature of having only one absolutely safe entrance and exit allow Kozuki Hyori to slowly close the door and deal with the enemies. Zaraki Kenpachi is not polite either. Although he has defeated the strongest people, there are still a few who can truly fight him. Sakazuki sits in the flower capital, blocking the entrance and exit, and he, along with Kozuki Hyori and some samurai, hunts down Kaido's crew members nationwide. While killing, they can also bring back the former retainers who were once loyal to the Kozuki family. For example, there is Yokozuna Kawamatsu, who became thin and weak due to giving all the food to Kozuki Hyori, causing her to feel sorry for him and secretly escape to wander. He was discovered by Kurozumi Orochi and imprisoned in the prisoners' quarry. This time, Zaraki Kenpachi led the army to liberate the entire country and rescued him. There are many similar existences, such as the swordsmith Tengu Yama-Fei Che, who hides in the mountains, and Suru, the unmarried fiancé copyrightee of the Jinbei Gate. However, while Wano country can block the entrance and exit, it cannot block the Den Den Mushi. New World, Marine G1 branch. A rugged-looking ship is about to sail past. And standing at the forefront of the ship is a tall man. He bears scars all over his body, has 2 ivory-like long horns on his head, and long black hair. Kaido, the Governor-General of the Beasts Pirates, known as the strongest creature on land, sea, and air. The crew members beside him twitched at the corners of their mouths, but they didn't know what to say. Their captain is about to do something reckless again. Kaido's interest is in suicide. He likes to run around the world alone to commit suicide, sometimes without even bringing his subordinates, directly challenging the Marines. He has endured more than 1,000 severe tortures. He has been sentenced to death 40 times, but even when subjected to hanging, he can break the chains, and even when taken to the guillotine, he can shatter the blade. Even when faced with a long spear, it ends with the spear breaking. In other words, no one can kill him, including himself. This time, his target is the Marine G1 branch. The G1 branch is the place that will later be relocated by Akainu to become the naval headquarters. It is also the only marine base in the New World, backed by the Red Line, easy to defend and difficult to attack, and can quickly receive support from marine experts. This time, this place has become his new place for suicide. The crew members have helpless expressions, but they can't say anything. Their Governor-General will not listen to their advice. Ring. The Den Den Mushi rang, and Kaido picked it up. Then, he read. His expression instantly twisted. Bang. He turned around abruptly. Set sail. Return to Wano. Kaido's eyes flickered with burning anger. I want to see who dares to provoke me like this. Kaido's actions were not hidden, and he didn't need to hide anything. In addition, the Four Emperors pirate group was already the center of attention, and organizations like the world government might even try to insert some spies. The Beasts Pirates were numerous and different from pirate groups like Whitebeards, which were formed based on personal relationships. Kaido accepted almost anyone who wanted to join, as long as they were strong. Naturally, there were also some spies secretly passing on information. So, it didn't take long for the world government and other forces to know what had happened: the rebellion in Wano country, the death of Kurozumi Orochi, and the killing of the Calamity Queen. Kaido, this is to go and eliminate the man who dared to provoke the Four Emperors. As the news spread, everyone was amazed and curious about the true identity of the person who provoked Kaido. The Marines specifically gathered several vice admirals and admirals for meetings. The actions of the Four Emperors, no matter how small, were enough to shake the world. Each of them was a force to be reckoned with. Similar figures include Uchiha Madara, Marine Fleet Admiral Sengoku, and so on. However, although this matter distracted many people's attention, there were actually not many who truly cared. People like Charlotte Linlin laughed at Kaido during the gathering, but that was it. Whether it was her, some pirate alliances that resisted the Four Emperors, or even the Marines, they didn't have the intention to seize Kaido's territory. Because Kaido was heading towards Wano country. The reason they were called the Four Emperors was not because of their vast influence or the large territories they occupied in the New World. It was because they were strong enough. So what if Wano country rebelled? So what if Kurozumi Orochi, their ally, rebelled? So what if their subordinate, Queen, was killed? As long as Kaido was there, the Beast's pirates would still be an immensely powerful pirate group. Even if the Beast's pirates were no more, it wouldn't matter. With only him left, he would still be one of the 4 emperors. On the other hand, Zaraki Kenpachi, who had just finished his Sexy 8 killing spree, defeated all his enemies and returned to the flower capital. Kozuki Hyori didn't have much prestige, but inheriting the reputation of the Kozuki clan could still make people submit. The ones he had just killed were the few remaining members of the Beast's pirates. The members of the Beast's pirates were still human. They couldn't live without eating or drinking, and it was unlikely that they could survive solely by relying on polluted streams. It wasn't difficult to find the last remaining individuals who could act as informants. Kozuki Hyori was also in a difficult position because under the rule of General Kurozumi Orochi, Wano country had always suffered from a shortage of food. Even if the factories were stopped, it wouldn't recover in a short period of time. It would take a long time to fully restore it to the level it was 20 years ago. This made Kozuki Hyori even more determined to open the country's borders, to trade with other countries and exchange Wano country's resources for food, in order to quickly heal the wounds caused by Kurozumi Orochi. However, the current focus of their work was how to defend against Kaido. Wano country didn't have the ability to block Den Mushi calls, and Kaido must have known about the changes in Wano country. He would definitely launch a large-scale attack, and although Wano country's geographical environment was suitable for defense, it wouldn't be easy to deal with that man. They could only rely on Kenpachi. Zaraki Kenpachi yawned and lay on the side, his half-closed eyes shining brightly. You've leveled up so quickly, host, Zhao Shu. Character templates. 1. Uchiha Madara, 83%. 2. Saitama, 72%. 3. Gilgamesh, 61%. 4. Ito Makoto, 38%. 5. Zaraki Kenpachi, 52%. Zhao Shu obtained the ability of Zaraki Kenpachi just 1 or 2 months ago, but it suddenly skyrocketed to 52%. You see, Gilgamesh, who obtained the template early and accomplished several major events, is only at 61%. Now it seems that if Zaraki Kenpachi does something, he might surpass Gilgamesh. It should be because Zaraki Kenpachi's template is easier to portray, Zhao Shu speculated in his mind. This character has a unique personality, as long as you keep slashing people, it's very much like him. On the side of Wano-kuni, he has been continuously fighting and competing with several experts. The hard work has not been in vain. Because of this, he suffered serious injuries. Those were all real injuries, and before this, Zhao Shu had never been injured since he came to the pirate world. Whether it's Uchiha Madara, Saitama, or Gilgamesh, they all crushed their opponents without any injuries. In terms of effort, Zhao Shu far surpasses those so-called fresh meat. Other templates have also made slight improvements. Uchiha Madara's template realism is already very high and has temporarily not increased. Saitama and Gilgamesh have not increased much either. Ito Makoto. The increase is not significant, probably because Cannon King hasn't started his own journey of artillery yet, so the realism is too low. But it doesn't matter, anyway. This template is not very useful. It's Zaraki Kenpachi. A smile appeared in Zhao Shu's eyes. 1 week later. Suddenly, the sky above the flower capital of Wano-kuni became cloudy. What's happening in the sky? It suddenly became gloomy. No, it seems like there's something there. Oh no. Shutenmaru's face changed drastically. That is. The next second, a dragon claw emerged from the clouds. Then, a dragon with a bluish-green body, almost large enough to cover the sky, drilled out. His appearance resembled an eastern dragon, but the color was cold and eerie. Each dragon claw was adorned with steel bracelets, and the bracelets had iron spikes, fierce and violent. 4 dragon horns, 2 in the front and 2 in the back. 2 whiskers, wildly arrogant. Teeth standing upright, extremely sharp. Then, its head suddenly leaned down and let out a loud roar. Zaraki Kenpachi. I, Kaido, have come to find you. Zaraki Kenpachi. I, Kaido, have come to find you. A rough voice resounded, shaking the heavens and earth. Everyone's faces were filled with fear and awe, as if they were being suppressed by a superior being. When it comes to one-on-one battles, of course, Kaido is the strongest. This is almost a consensus among everyone in the world. Everyone would say this, affirming his strength. Sakazuki's expression became serious. Although Zaraki Kenpachi defeated Kurozumi Orochi and Yonko Kaido, compared to Kaido, These two were nothing. In the battle against Yonko Kaido and Charlotte Linlin, although he made a direct move, he was sent flying by Charlotte Linlin after just 2 moves and only woke up after a while. Although he didn't suffer any major injuries, and the might not affect his combat power, it was only 2 moves. There is a decisive gap between the 3 calamities and the 4 emperors. Sakazuki gritted his teeth. If they couldn't rely on Zaraki Kenpachi, they wouldn't be able to find any other help. Perhaps, he might seek assistance elsewhere. For example, the Marines, or other 4 emperors. However, unfortunately, luck was not on their side. Wano country had been closed off for too long, and their uprising was too hasty. Currently, they only had one unknown helper, Zaraki Kenpachi, and no one else. 4 emperors? Marines? You have to find them first. Of course, even if you find them, you have to consider whether they will lend a hand. Like the Marines, who are currently in a state of being beaten by Uchiha Madara, with most of their high-ranking combatants injured, even if Wano country asks for help, they probably won't come. An invisible pressure weighed on everyone's hearts. The figure with unparalleled haki and incredible strength brought immense pressure. Everyone's hearts felt heavy under this pressure. However, there was one person who wasn't affected. Ha ha ha, I've been waiting for you. A figure carrying a long sword appeared not far from Flower Capital, laughing wildly. Joy was written all over his rough face. Kenpachi. Kozuki Hyori looked up. He's here. Sakazuki was momentarily stunned, then smiled. Indeed, he loves this kind of thing the most. Kenpachi-sama, the god of war. The samurais of Flower Capital's eyes regained their brilliance. This is the charm of a strong individual. Come, I've been waiting for you. Zaraki Kenpachi swung his sword and pointed it directly at Kaido. Interesting. The eyes of the dragon in the sky widened, and it suddenly descended. Then, it transformed into a burly man. He had the height of a small giant, with muscular arms hanging down. The 100 beasts, Kaido. It's you, the one who killed Queen. Kaido's rough face carried a hint of killing intent. Yeah. Zaraki Kenpachi revealed a smile, his eyes filled with excitement. He was a decent opponent, made me quite happy. But you better be stronger than him. Upon hearing this, Kaido first froze, then revealed a murderous intent. It's been a while, it's been a long time since I've heard someone dare to speak to me like this. A towering killing intent surged on this ordinary field. Zaraki Kenpachi also grinned, releasing his Ryotsu. The wild aura stirred the heavens and earth, disrupting the wind and clouds. Kenpachi, Jutenmaru and Kozuki Hyori rushed over as well. You're in the way, Zaraki Kenpachi said without looking back. All of you, get lost. Jutenmaru twitched his mouth. In fact, he really wanted to say, why don't we take advantage of the fact that Kaido is alone right now and attack him together? If you dare to get in the way, I'll cut you all down together. The smile on Zaraki Kenpachi's face became even more insane, his eyes filled with wild fervor. No one would doubt that this man was only joking with that statement. Let's go. Jutenmaru took a deep breath and finally gave the order. We're heading to the coastline. Kaido's crew should be over there. Saying that, Jutenmaru and the others hurried towards the coastline. Wano-kuni is not a small country, and there are many strong individuals. These people are not weak either. Like Jutenmaru himself, they can cut down Jack, who doesn't use a devil fruit, and even attract Kaido's recruitment. Coupled with the geographical advantage, it shouldn't be too difficult to withstand Kaido's pirate crew. The real battlefield is here. Kaido didn't even spare a glance at them. With strong individuals here, why bother looking over there? You're strong, aren't you? Kaido's eyes focused on Kenpachi. If you submit to me now, I can spare your life. Kaido cherishes strong individuals and likes to recruit powerful fighters. Like Jutenmaru, he has received his recruitment more than once, and other supernovas of the new era have also received his recruitment. He has many subordinates like them, all recruited by him. Not willing to submit, then overpower them with strength. Threaten, coerce, and oppress. So although his pirate crew can be said to be the largest among the 4 emperors, it is also the most internally divided. But still, they are equally strong, however, in the next second. Clang. Kaido's Wolf Fang Club clashed with Zaraki Kenpachi's sword. Why are you blabbering? Come at me. Zaraki Kenpachi's eyes were filled with madness. Without hesitation, he swung his sword. Clang, clang, clang. His attacks were fierce, powerful, and relentless, as if he was crazy. Facing weaker opponents, Zaraki Kenpachi has a habit of holding back, in order to fully enjoy the battle. But against Kaido, he doesn't need to suppress himself too much. Every strike was a mad slash. But Kaido is, after all, one of the 4 emperors. He suddenly retreated, his eyes finally showing a hint of seriousness. Swish! Zaraki Kenpachi's sword swung empty, leaving a sword mark on the wilderness. In the next second, a club came, forcefully sending Zaraki Kenpachi flying far away. However, not bad. Zaraki Kenpachi laughed madly as he stood up, his eyes filled with excitement. It looks like we can have a good fight. Let me enjoy it to the fullest. In the next second, he took off his eye patch.